foreign to us to see this kind of architecture. I can value it in different countries, yes,
So if you
but
had a,
it's
if you had a
foreign
Muslim
to me.
architect,
It's a kind, when I stand in front of a mosque and
yeah.
I see it as a territorial attack, because there's something foreign to me, foreign to my I could say the same thing to the globalist architecture, the big buildings and stuff like that, modern architecture. It's not comparable with classical German architecture. It's also an attack on our culture. I see it.
Are you
this way.
suggesting a Muslim architect could not appreciate
Yes.
your architecture?
No, I say he can, but he values their architecture more than ours. And we see it by the way they build things here in Germany.
Do you think your viewpoint is comes from your feelings rather than
No,
like
observation.
So you've spoken to Muslims in, where do you live in Germany?
I live near the Netherlands borders.
Like
Okay, so
near
you speak to
Dusseldorf.
Muslims in your area and you ask them about
Yes.
architecture?
No, not about architecture. I spoke to one Turkish guy that is much in German culture. He's spiritually more German than Turkish. It's very rare to find someone like that. He gets a lot of heat from Turks for that. And he explained me that he has spoken to Turks, and he says, "Yeah, you're right on that observation." But I haven't spoke to other Turkish people about this specific type of thing.
So you're sharing a second-hand anecdotal story with us.
Yes, but also I observe things, and I see not only this is one specific thing. I see also how they behave in our country. They still act like they do in their country. You know,
Would it be
small
fair to,
parts.
sorry, just one question. Would it be
Yes.
fair to say that you do more watching than interacting with these Muslims?
For example, I'm now here in that stream. I'm also I'm always trying to speak with other peoples but here in Germany it is extremely tough to talk to other people, to leftists, to people of different religion, different race and stuff like that. So I have to basically talk to other people in a foreign language, in English, to actually speak to them. You know, we have some smaller projects where we come together.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's one project of a friend of mine who's called Frank Kremer. He has a project that is translated multiculturalism versus multiculturalism meets nationalism. This is a black guy who values multiculturalism, and he met this friend of mine who's a nationalist. I don't share every point with him, but he's a friend of mine. And they started a project to bring together different people, and it was very successful, one must say. Also, German media talks slams this project because they are afraid of people speaking to each other. They want this divide et impera, you know. And yes, there were no Muslims, I think, but there were, for example, non-political people who are mostly multiculturalists, but of different races. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to drink something. My mouth,
No worries,
my mouth
man.
is very dry.
Hey, and I hope
you can ask me further questions. I just have to sip something.
No
problem.
Away. No, I'm done with you. Pretty much done with you. How you doing, Witness? You all right?
Hello. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Long time, man. Long time.
Long time.
How's the FRD massive? Are they all right?
Yeah. It's gotten bigger. Got a lot more Americans turning up.
Yeah.
Oh, you heard what happened to Rob? Robert.
Kind of. Yeah. Go on.
been giving his opinions for a long time. So naturally, a lot of us, including you probably, I don't know, we began to suspect that Rob is a Nazi, he's a fascist.
Yeah.
So James issued out a claim to Rob. He said, Rob, I believe that you are a Nazi, and he gave him the reasons why. And he said, why don't you come and debate with us? And Rob received the message, and Rob never came back to FRD since then. That was more than a month ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. Because he likes to debate and argue, but when that claim was made and the claims were listed as to what he had said, you know, about eugenics being masterpiece and all that, he never came back. So I don't know. Maybe he's afraid, or maybe he's bored.
Yeah. I saw some comments on YouTube, and also I noticed that he was on, you know, several YouTube channels rather than Discord. So I thought that something had happened.
Yeah, that was the thing which made him stop coming back to James's Discord community.
Send my love to James. Yeah, send my love to James.
Who is Rob? I never heard of him.
He's somebody from Speaker's Corner.
Okay. Can I find him under Rob?
Wait,
No,
are you talking
he's
about?
got a channel,
Are
hasn't
you
he?
talking
What's
about
his
South
channel?
African Rob?
Called,
Gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. Yes.
That's the one, yeah.
GINN and tonic. It's a channel in which they criticize Islam, and they read from the Quranic passage verses and they criticize it.
Yes.
And sometimes he gets Muslims to come on to debate.
So he's the Tommy Robinson kind of.
No, he's not.
He's South African, if I remember correctly.
He's a policeman in South Africa.
Well, actually, no. You can't use the term South African, because under ethno-nationalism, South African is a white man from England or Holland, so he's a white guy who grew up in South Africa.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing. I think someone earlier, we were. I mean, this whole discussion sort of came off the back of COE's video with Ralph and Steve and the rest of them from last weekend, and someone in the chat kind of extended Ralph's logic to its sort of terminal point, and highlighted the case of South Africa. And you know, according to Ralph's theories, every single white person in South Africa should be removed, as should all of the white people in, I guess, Zimbabwe. It would also, I mean, retrospectively apply to the Indians who were expelled from Uganda. So that's like Raj's family. It's a really slippery slope, I would say.
Dan and the panel. How do you feel about, you know, all these guys who talk about ethno-nationalism and the rest, when they express their concerns about foreign lands? It's all BS, isn't it? You know, when they say, "Oh, we want Africa to thrive, and you know, we want you to go back to Africa and blah blah." That's all BS, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it all starts close to home, and then it's kind of projected onto some far-flung place that the people that I mean, I find
they don't give a cahoots. They don't give a cahoots about.
I don't think it's sincere. I very rarely like I mean, I don't know. I've heard Ralph talk about the 14 words applying essentially to everyone. You can just replace the white with Indian or black or mixed race or whatever, and it would.
It's strange, no? It's strange to think that somehow your lot in life or your quality of life will improve if you have people of the same skin tone around you.
I asked Ralph. I said, I played a hypothetical with him. I said, let's say you get what you want through immigration and you kick out all the black and brown people from the UK. Will you leave Africans to get on with their own politics? And he said no, that he would consider it his Christian duty to get involved in African politics, provide African Christians with weapons to kill Africans who are non-Christians. So it's all BS, as you point.
This contradicts.
He's an agent provocateur, that Ralph, and he's just looking for attention.
Because he calls himself a Christian imperialist. So the imperialism part involves colonization.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, this contradicts his ethno-nationalist views, I would say. Yes. Definitely. This is, you know, this is the kind of dogmatic Christianity I hate.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it when people say, "Oh, I'm proud of being English," when they've done nothing to I don't know to contribute to their pride of being English. Just because they were born in this country, they seem to think that they have more of a claim, or basically because they're white.
Like a passive kind of right to exist, a passive Britishness or something. Because I mean, to me, I see British culture as something that's highly fluid. It changes from generation to generation. The generation that my generation grew up on completely different music and I don't know, just kind of pop culture, I suppose, to the millennial generation that's growing up now. Generation kind of Z or whatever, X or whatever the hell they call it. And I think actually you have to actively participate in civic society, in your culture. You have to maintain it. It has to. You can't just. I've said this to Ralph before. It's no good complaining about kind of globalism taking over the UK if you're contributing to the profits of, say, Costa Coffee or, I don't know, some hip European cafe bar, wine bar that's basically aimed at yuppies, and you're not going to the local cafe, the Greasy Spoon or the Pie and Mash place, because that's kind of what British culture is. It's Greasy Spoons and Pie and Mash and pubs, and people going to wine bars in the late 80s and 90s killed off pubs. We know that. And look, it was an opportunity for.
But let me explain you why you are somewhat right, I would say. But the reason why you have that right, everyone, even though me as a German, most Germans, as I said before, can't explain you anymore what German culture is now. We have a total collapse. It's actually we have really a culture that destroys actively all German culture.
No, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that.
Oh yes.
You gave it up.
No. There's a specific plan. The specific plan of this Frankfurt School, this cultural Marxist, was to deconstruct all culture, all traditions, even families. This was the plan, and they took over Germany and most of the Western world. They did it.
Okay, describe German culture.
I could write you a book about that.
Yeah, well, I don't, obviously.
What you said about culture is changing all the time and stuff like that. This is part truth, but we always have a continuum of culture. For example, if you look at the architecture, this is one thing that lasted hundreds of years. This is built for the next generation, so the next generation still can remember what their ancestors' spirit was. This is something that
because England is an island of immigrants. Some of our words are French. Cul-de-sac, mortgage, loads of words of French.
The discussion of the Germans.
But what
you do have a culture, but I don't dispute that. You do have your cuisine, your language, your history. But
but this is just the this is a very this is our buzzwords, if I said Bavarian culture, I have this Oktoberfest or something.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
No, I'm not
what goes in deep, if you want to understand the German culture and the German spirit, you have to read books of our great philosophers,
that's fine.
to understand that.
Your culture has been taken away, or over the years people have adopted new ideas, and do you not think culture evolves?
It degrades. It has degraded.
And who's responsible? White Germans or immigrants?
Okay, there
This
we
was
come
where I
to
was
it.
getting at. The point is,
I would say the first step was the German re-education camps. This was forced on us by the Americans after World War II. This was one big step to destroy the German culture. And then
what did these classes take away? What did they remove from you exactly?
everything: German proudness, how German feel about themselves. They think about themselves as evil, you know.
that
And
has to do with the
this,
Third Reich. You can't ignore
yes,
the Third Reich. So there was
yes, but
so you're talking about the shame and guilt from World War II.
It's not only World War II. It's they told us that we also have an inherent way of warrior spirit or something that always wants to destroy every other people and stuff like that. Even before, yes, even before they blamed us on World War I. They also blamed us on
World War
what
II.
is that? No. They even saw the Holy Roman Empire as an evil time and stuff like that. They blamed us basically on everything, you know, the whole German history. So it was the of course World War II was the most propagandized thing, but they especially attacked Germanness in itself, you know, and they guilt us and said if you become German again, this will happen again. And this is why automatically you deconstruct, if you have this guilt complex, you deconstruct everything that is you know. This comes naturally then, and we have to inform people, educate people back who they are.
That's so good. But the fact is, the reason why you have a large migrant population is because of policies, foreign policies, your country and the Americans implemented. If you hadn't gone into Iraq and Syria, you wouldn't have had all those people from the Middle East coming.
They would come, maybe not as fast, but they would still come, because we have this multicultural mindset. This was just a way for them.
That's a buzzword. You're using a buzzword now, multicultural mindset. You were complaining about buzzwords earlier. You've used cultural Marxism. You've now used this multicultural mindset. You're not really touching on the foreign policy of your country, your trade policies, which affect these other countries, destabilizing their economy, invading their countries, making them then think that they have to come to your country for safety. Perhaps if you actually left them alone, then you wouldn't have to be worrying about being an ethno-nationalist, would you?
Exactly, and Libya is case in point. You know,
but it wasn't Germans. You compare now Germany to the West. You know, I see that every time. The most crucial factor that, for example, for the wars is the US, I would say, first, and then France and the UK that take part in this imperialism. Of course, they say it's bringing democracy to the countries. So I would go even as far in saying it is a kind of supremacist mindset, this globalist mindset, to push the liberalist worldview on every country in the world. It's supremacy, and I'm against that.
But you're in favor of ethno-nationalist supremacy. So you're
yes, ethno-nationalist supremacy in my country, of course, yes. So I would go as far, but not expanding. You know, ethno-nationalist is just I would maybe it's more understandable if I say I'm ethno-pluralist. I'm not only claiming ethno-nationalism for myself, but also for other peoples to have to save their culture. And therefore,
again. This is the plan for foreign lands again.
I just wanted to highlight something. I mean, what I'm seeing here, I mean, World War I and World War II are pretty pivotal points for the sort of major European powers. You've got to kind of consider the fact that, I mean, I would say every nation bar the US had to create a post-World War II mythology. I mean, the British created a mythology that we won the war. Welcome to Imran, Beyond Atheism as well. Big up yourself, man.
Big up, man. How's it going? I think first time on the show.
First time, I was going to say welcome, man. Finally, man.
Thanks, man.
You were one of the first people to tell me to get a channel sorted. So, yeah, big up yourself, man. And we actually have, we have someone who, can maybe add to the discussion. But before I forget, and I think the national myth that Britain created, especially, has really come back to bite us in this Brexit scenario, because to nationalists in the UK, the irony of apparently winning the war, or being on the winning side of the war, and now being in a kind of second-rate, third-rate position in terms of the EU, subservient to Angela Merkel, subservient to Brussels. I think that's it's kind of one of the underlying forces that's sort of pushing us towards this Brexit conclusion.
I would say Brexit is really, in this state, it doesn't mean anything. It's just, nothing changes for Britain if they leave the EU, maybe economy-wise, but the mindset of the people hasn't really changed. I see not, for example, if you voted for Brexit because you want lesser migration, Brexit won't bring you anything, because the people in power are still multiculturalist, globalist. So it won't change a thing. Britain let in all these migrants they were former colonist state.
Commonwealth.
And they did it before the EU. So it won't change a damn thing about migration. It was just for me, and I would go even farther. I would say, if the globalists are clever, and I think they are, they would let we basically stand in front of a financial crash. It can come this year, next year, or in 3 years, but it will come in the next years. So if I would be a globalist, I would blame it on the nationalists, and I would do it. For example, if Britain has the Brexit, I would let the market collapse then, and blame it on the nationalists. Or when Trump is in power, I would do it then. And then the globalists have the perfect argument to say, look, it was the nationalists, and now we have to basically erase all nation states and become one big blob of capitalist marketing slave people, without any culture or something. This would be perfect for them. I would say the worst thing that can happen is if they blame it on some kind of nationalist before the system collapses. I hope no real nationalist in any country with power comes to power before this collapse happens.
All right. Anyone on the panel who hasn't spoken want to add anything? Imran?
What are your thoughts on people
jump on.
trying to set up a Christian caliphate?
Ali, let Imran go first, man. Go on. Beyond Atheism, your shot, man.
So what I've come to think recently is that a lot of these nationalists, right, they want to go back to the world like 100 years ago, and up until the European nations and the nation state. But the nation state, is not like how humans naturally live, right? I think that's a transitionary period that humans went through, like the nation state. And I think that it's losing relevance now, because people now, they can just go traveling, or they can go on the internet and they can see stuff from across the world. So they don't really identify with a nation state. It's become meaningless nowadays, especially if you got two different groups, like the left and the right, and you've got only one country, and they're both fighting for the same country. It's like if one wins, the other has to lose. Do you know what I mean? So one has to always lose if one wants to win, and no one's got 100% control anyway. So it's always like a fucked up compromise, like a really fucked up compromise. So these people and people like Ralph, they want to go back to something which is not even like, which we've gone past that now. We've gone past like one king and one kingdom, and everyone does what the king says. Like that's not good.
What's the real psychological reason why these people are looking sideways and fighting the people that are their peers? We know that they can't fight the powers that be, i.e. the government, that are really fucking them over. So they look sideways.
No, of course we see that. I was talking about that the whole time. Didn't you listen?
I didn't really listen to a lot of what you said, German boy.
Yeah, I was explaining. It's funny because what you said is completely in line with what the powers that be says. You are completely online.
What, me?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, because that must be the case, right? But what you guys are saying is not reality, right? You know, what do you want to go back to? How are you going to go back to the nation before 1940, where everyone was like proud German? We're going to build factories. We're going to take over Europe. Like,
no,
yeah,
now they go across the world. You can find them in Thailand. You can find them like picking up women in Thailand. Going to Pakistan. I was watching a German YouTuber going to Pakistan. There's in the UK. Like they're going to all these different places, and you're just saying, "Oh, we're just gonna only be German." And
what you are describing is national chauvinism. You describe national chauvinism. I'm not that. I'm an ethno-pluralist or ethno-nationalist.
Okay, what can I just ask briefly? I mean, maybe you might have thought about this, but what would you put in place to prevent? I think the term is purity spiraling. So once let's say you manage to clean up the country, you expel non-Germans, you sort of find I don't know, some kind of metric that allows you to do that. What then? I mean, I think this goes back to what Bhadmarsh was saying. What are you going to kind of create or implement to tie people together? I was kind of going back to this national myth. I mean, that's what Hitler had to create, a myth. This sort of this myth that leaned on the Greco-Roman kind of heritage of Northern Europe, as well as this sort of more kind of Orientalist, Eastern inspired Aryan kind of theory. And I mean, that was actually it was an incredibly powerful myth that pulled Germany out of
the myth of the Teutonic Knights.
Yes, exactly that. And I mean, this was a myth that Hitler created. I mean, prior to that, the only myth that was really going around was that Germany hadn't lost World War I. They'd in fact been backstabbed by globalists. And I mean, that was actually quite a weak myth to have. I mean, the idea that there's someone standing behind our nation, stabbing our nation in the back. I'm thinking as a German here. It's kind of a submissive position. Whereas Hitler created this myth that put Germans kind of back in the driving seat and reignited some kind of latent sense of something. I don't know. Like what can you create in the 21st century to sort of match that? I mean, again,
I would say yes. It's basically national chauvinism. I would say it's completely. It was one of the worst, disastrous things for Europe. I would say that Britain was even more national chauvinistic than even the National Socialist was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would go as a third positionist, which is ethno-pluralist worldview, as I described. This can unite Europe, the European people, as well as the nation, nationalistic kind of get together, as well as the regional, as I described, the Bavarian inside of Germany or something, also to protect this culture within Germany. It's a third positionist worldview, which isn't communist, which isn't capitalist based, and not only based on nationalism.
Okay, I've had to look up ethno-pluralists and ethno-pluralism, so I'm going to have a little bit of a read. I'm going to let the panel...
Do you understand, though, that, as you mentioned, Dan, what we discussed earlier, the expulsion of people, how does that...
Yeah, you want to go into...
trade policy, because Germany now has
Yes.
trade with those countries whose citizens have been expelled. How do you do that?
Yes, of course. The first thing is we have to get rid of this money system, which creates money out of thin air, you know, and only a small elite profits from that. And people, not only Africans or Indians or someone else country outside of Europe are suffering under that. Also, the Germans are suffering under that money system. I would get rid of this money system, and I would say that the world wars. It was funny. I think I was also chatting in the episode with Ralph and who's this other guy that was talking in that stream. Steve, yeah, about that. There was some stupid guy that told, "Oh, we fight the Nazis because of racism and stuff like that." It can't be more naive to think about why the British fought the Germans or the Americans than that. It was not about that. It was about, first and foremost, about the money controlled system, and Germany was implementing their own money system, which was not on based on depth like it is today. So I would get rid of this money system, but only if all the Europeans unite and we don't have the same result that, let's say, okay, for example, the UK decides to get out of this money system, you will find yourself that the Americans would suddenly call you terrorist and racist country or something,
I'll tell you what,
invade you.
I'll tell you what, the Indians of the UK will not be on your side. They make their money from rental income, you know?
Yeah, okay. Rental income, okay?
Land registry, you know, we own most of the properties. So.
Yes. It's good. For example, Libya has also yes, and Iran also, and this is one reason they try to push the war in Iran, because they are not in this global money system. And I would first get rid of this money system, and then the world is a much better place already. Yeah, if you get rid of that
currency thing that we have.
Yes, yes. And then I would get rid. I think the biggest thing that is also aside from the money system is the trade system, which the European Union, for example, has implemented on African countries. Yes. I would get rid of these policies in the European Union as well.
So will you have no kind of currency? What will you do? Just exchange goods and services?
Yeah, this was more or less what the German did in World War II. But I would create a money system which is a little bit more complex than that, but not creating money out of thin air. I would completely get rid of that.
Yeah, in theory, I'm on your side. It's just that the Indian in me doesn't want me to go there. You know?
So, and I think this is a thing that everyone should fight against and unite against on that part. I think I have explained it in someone else's channel already, that they push for multiculturalism, so that we are thinking on other problems than this big problem we have. The whole world has, you know. We have to fight against each other in our countries and not attack the real elites. You know,
That's why
we
we're
don't have time to discuss Epstein, for example. You know, and the whole thing that goes around of these people. You know, getting our politician in some kind of scam and manipulate them into making their policies for them, you know, stuff like that. We don't have time for that because we are arguing with the leftists if we have gender neutral toilets, for example. You know, the media are pushing this and not the important topics. You know, yeah. I think also the climate change. It's a big deal.
Then we should stop voting, right, for this pseudo democracy that we have in the West.
Yes, but who really addresses these points of the money system? Almost no parties, because if people address that, they get killed.
Why are we playing this charade then? Why are we voting?
Good question.
Listen, you know what? Yeah, I know this is a cliche, but you know the definition of madness is doing the same thing again and again.
It's that Albert Einstein quote.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And expecting a different result, right? We need to stop playing their game.
That's true, man. That's what I did as well. I actually stopped voting this time around, and probably won't be voting again. I just stopped playing that game, man. It's a bit pointless. It's a bit stupid. It's like they give you a little hint of power, and you think you're playing the game, and like as if it makes a difference. They just don't play the game, because don't think you're in the game. That it's like they give you a choice and they're saying, "Oh, choose between this and this," and they have the power to give you that choice. So I just don't.
Imran,
Yes.
you know, the bad reality is, yeah, you only really care about your family and your social circle.
Exactly.
Well, we're not in their social circle. The people that make the decisions. I live near Vince Cable. I see him, and the guy's off his rocker. He's nuts. He talks to himself when he walks down the road. Yeah, he's off his trolley.
See this German guy, yeah, he don't get it. This German guy.
What's the name, German guy? We can't kill you, German guy, innit? That's
yeah, Trotchin.
Angie.
I don't think we can moan about the system as much, but you can't change the system from the outside. If people really want to bring about change, you have to sort of get inside the system and change it from within. There is no chance anyone going to change the system from the outside.
They sold you a lie.
But they are masters in that. You know, these people.
You just said that. I'm 42, man. I've been playing this game longer than you.
Yeah, it's very tough to infiltrate the system because this system is, you know, they have done so to get in power. They are the masters of infiltration.
You know, the young guys said, yeah, we have to vote and play that, do it their way. Look, we've got quote unquote Asians in Parliament now. Yeah, Priti Patel, Sajid Javid, all these type of people. We've got you could say Asians in there now, but still.
Yes.
Because they're just in the game. They just like those Asians are just in their game, but they're not following the Asian culture. And this is the thing.
Positive Asians in Parliament.
Sorry,
I've seen some positive Asians in Parliament too doing their thing. I've seen that Rosina Ali in Parliament raise awareness for the Rohingya Muslims when she was in charge. I've seen that.
That's a Muslim thing. Like the Muslims are in the back of the queue, man, in terms of being helpful. Like you guys are just in your own world, innit? You're in your own world, like your own politics, and you don't care about no one else. Like that's a different thing, innit? Like
the idea that you're going to change this system from the outside is impossible. The only way
I would say.
I say let's not cooperate with them anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Bro, I'm going to cooperate with this.
I would say, for example, I give you maybe I shouldn't give you the tip, but I see since I predict a financial crash over the next 3 years or something. It doesn't really matter anyway. Voting in parties now. It would be a thought process 20 years ago or 10 years ago maybe. But I would go then and create my own party, you know, and try it with this. For example, I know many people of the German AfD, and I know they know about the money system.
What's AfD? Sorry,
the Alternative for Deutschland. It's a growing party. It's a patriotic party. Some
of their political scale.
Yeah, but they are not only. I would go a little bit farther and say they address, for example, that the Germans should be the majority in the country. They are not full ethno-nationalists or something, but they are way more ethno-nationalists, if you say it like this, than some parties that call themselves patriotic, but really they are not. They are just civic nationalists. And the AfD is somewhat in between a civic nationalist and an ethno-nationalist. But they are also woke on many other things. There are people in the AfD that know about, for example, 9/11 and have high power in the AfD. This is why I'm voting for them.
But what do you mean they know about it? Everyone knows about 9/11.
That it was an inside job, and there's specifics you can go into, and how
from Afghanistan.
What?
You're suggesting that Bin Laden didn't organize it from a cave in Afghanistan?
Of course not.
Hey, German guy, I want to ask you a question, yeah? Which country do you think has got a better culture? Do you think America or India has got a better culture?
At the moment?
Yeah. Which one do you respect more?
I would say the Indian overall, the Indian culture at the moment.
You want people to come and shit outside his house.
Yeah.
Because American culture that's caused all these problems of like modern society, right? Like capitalism and all that stuff, right? But like you guys are like pro-America and stuff, but it's the kind of dominance of the American capitalist, like Hollywood media. All of this is American. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the media,
cultural dominance, economic dominance, full spectrum.
And you guys are close to Americans, like whites. Do you know what I'm saying? So maybe you can't see the problem, and maybe the problem, if you let the Americans in and say, "Oh, these black people are bad" or whatever, maybe you're gonna make your things worse, isn't it? If you let, because I talk to a lot of Americans and they don't see the problem is with America, because America is the most fucked up country in the world culturally, like for all this stuff. And Britain.
Whitewash Indian culture, though, should we? There's a lot of fucked up shit happening in India, man. Come on.
But I'm talking about this capitalist media culture of like brainwashing people who are making money off.
The whole world's capitalist. A lot of
what?
In India.
I think we should have a dictatorship and just give power to Lister and let him run the country. That's the solution.
I simply,
everything will be all right.
I trust Lister in it. Let's have a dictatorship. Let's let Lister run the country. He's got some good ideas. I'm more than happy with that.
I'll be your dictator.
I respect, for example, the Indian culture more. Let me explain. More than the American culture. Simply because the Indians still know who they are, they still have a feeling of community. Of course, there are also different ethnicities and stuff like that, and different cultures within India and stuff like that, but they still have their traditions. And America, white Americans have no idea who they are. This is the only thing. That doesn't mean that I would rather live in India now than in America. I would still want to live in America probably than in India, because there are within America. I would say if I live in an area where white people, I would still. I still manage to better communicate with them, how they act, how they speak. I understand them better than how the Indian acts.
But do you see, do you see that this problem that you got is not because of black people, Asian people, it's because of American culture? Do you see that, right? Like,
of course, I see that.
You see that? So it's like you can't blame the immigrants because you're accepting the American culture. Then you should blame the American culture.
No, I don't. I don't blame immigrants for that. I blame.
You took your culture away. You guys let your culture get diluted. Even in this country.
I would also say that there is a foreign people that are highly influential in that happening.
I think I filled in the gaps. Yeah, I think I filled it in.
Who's influential? If he says Rothschild, I'm going to leave.
Talking about the Jews.
Nobody say Rothschild.
You are talking about Hollywood, right?
I'm going to say Rothschild.
So who runs Hollywood?
Yeah, but this is old news, though.
What?
This is old news.
Yeah. So you say if Hollywood and other institutions control America or have the dominance about the culture. So I said in the Hollywood part, this is not our people that influence the thinking of America. It's other people that have influenced that. For example, if you go to Hollywood, you mentioned Hollywood, I explain how Hollywood work, and you can go to the names and you will see. So if we are talking about cultural Marxism and you go to the names of the Frankfurt School, you will see the exact same thing, So I say it's not only a white were part of it, you have whites that took part in it, but the idea of what is dominant in our culture is so much against the European spirit. I can't. The European spirit is a spirit of heroes, of myth, and it's completely against that, and it can't come from us alone. It can't.
Do you want to say the Jews did you over? Can you just say it with your chest?
I would say they play a huge part in it. Yes, it can't be denied. And if I wouldn't talk about it, I would be a hypocrite, a liar, and stuff like
listen,
that.
Bro, I just want to be upfront here. Are you have you got issues with the numbers in the camps?
I won't go into that.
No, just don't. I won't.
It doesn't matter to me. I know it matters. It still matters in our culture. We are still.
You're a denier.
Remember, you have two on mainstream media. You will find 2 shows about the Holocaust in our TV stations, for example. Yeah, we are always reminded on that, and this has to end. Also for the Jews, it's the best that this will end, I would say, because it's not healthy to always think of the worst parts in your history. You have to go lift your people up, instead of always
no, you need to know
feeling yourself that that the world is against you and stuff like that.
You have to know your roots, your history.
Yes, of course.
But I mean, do you not think what you just said about sort of thinking the world's against you? Are you not jumping back into the same position by sort of buying into this global Jewish conspiracy? Is that not?
To some part, yes, and I would say, of course, the Jews are right that they have been not only Europeans but also Muslims and other peoples. That they, but the Jews should ask themselves why there is anti-Semitism, and they won't discuss this. There are some Jews, for example, on the channel No More News, there are, I think, 2 to 3 Jews who are always on his channel and discussing this question. And I think we should be more honest with.
Can I just say welcome to?
Yes.
Is that Rob? Gin and Tonic Show, Rob? welcome to the panel.
Hi, good evening, guys.
Rob, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing, man?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Bro, sorry to the German fella. Can you give us your idea on why anti-Semitism is so prevalent around the world?
It exists because they blame the Jews for the killing of Christ.
Yeah, I was because they released a murdering rapist, didn't they? Barabbas, whatever.
Barabbas, yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
The fact that Jesus was a Jew and the disciples were Jews, and there were a lot of Jews who actually liked Jesus. Not all Jews hated Jesus.
Europe is kind of fucked up, man. With these Jews, man. Europe and the Jews, that shit keeps going on. Like, is that ever gonna end, or like, is this gonna go on?
Yes, it doesn't end. So I'm also for the Jews that have their own state.
What is it? You guys need our help. This is what it is. Yeah? This is what it is. Yeah?
It would be the best. We tried it for hundreds of years. It's best. We all have our own countries.
Mm. Yeah, but can you give us your idea? Because we said it's because of JC, killing JC. But what's your idea of why this anti-Semitism is so prevalent?
It's. Do you ask me or this?
Yeah, you specifically, yes.
Look, I criticize everyone, not only Jews. I criticize blacks. I criticize whites that, for example, are destroying culture. I criticize the liberal, every liberalists. You know, I criticize every cultural Marxist that have this ideology. So I would say we could have an alliance with Jews that is also against this ideology. I criticize the ideology, and I think the only people really that doesn't do that really to a huge amount are Jews themselves. They don't criticize liberalism. They simply don't do it. They say if you, for example, if you speak against capitalism, even if you just name the name capitalism, they see it as anti-Semitism. You know, so we can't even talk about ideology or problems in the world because the Jews themselves say, okay, if you talk about that, then it's anti-Semitism because, yeah, what they are implying is it's because of us. But it's not only them taking part in capitalism, it's also whites. It's not only them that now participate in cultural Marxism. It's mostly whites now that do this shit also. So they don't have to see it like it's only blamed on them. It's also all these other people that engage in this stuff, and we can talk about that without specifying or have a focus just on the Jews. It's stupid. But when Jews say it's anti-Semitism, they themselves bring it to them. You know.
Mm. You think they play victim too much?
Oh yes, and it's a strong weapon to be a victim. You can enlarge your power with that, with the victim status. That is why whites are denied the victim status.
Whites are denied the victim.
Oh, whoa! Ooh, sorry, I just popped into my head. Do you? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but okay. Let's assume people believe that there is a supremacy. People are superior, right? Would assume, right? So I would say that would, if you believe that white people are superior, then that prevents them from ever being the victim, surely.
I don't understand what you mean.
Yeah, but he thinks that white people are a victim now, isn't it? He's described them.
Yes.
You think they're a victim now, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're playing victim too, aren't you?
Yes. The question is that, for example, if I say the if I play victim and I'm not, then it's illegitimate, right? So I would say, for example, the Syrians are the victim of American imperialism. Yes, and it's correct, right? So, but if I say, for example, something that's just simply wrong, or if let's say, if you go with the narrative, the Nazis, for example, weren't the victim because of this and that. They brought it to themselves. That it was justified that they lost the war, or that we fought against them. Then it would be correct because they were wrong and stuff like that, right? So if, for example, if someone rapes my daughter, yes, he can't be the victim if I kill him, right? For example, everyone understand that. You know, he can't be playing. He was. It was in my opinion then justified that I take counter action so that this will never happen again. I could also say, okay, he goes to prison, and he's not a victim by the justice system because he did something that was justified so that he goes in prison, right? So I have always to look at if he says he's a victim, is he the real victim, or was he a perpetrator, right? So, and this is all I'm saying. I say if it's legitimate criticizing being a victim, then of course you should point out that you are under attack, right? Yes. I hope. I'm sorry for my bad English, but
that's all right, man. And I think your English is going to improve. Hopefully, we can use these panels as I don't know what you call it. Like a language linguistics study session. I wanted to bring in Rob, if you're there. Rob? Maybe he's not. Okay.
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm here.
We were discussing kind of race realism, ethno-nationalism, ethno-pluralism. I don't know if you were sort of listening to the conversation.
No, I just popped in now.
Rob, don't mention the bell curve, please.
Don't mention
the bell curve.
Oh, right. Not really a topic that I'm that interested in.
You were actually mentioning before you came on.
Whatever the science shows or doesn't show, that's whatever the case is, right?
You were mentioned briefly before we came on. I don't know. I don't know if anyone else wants to touch on it. It was there was a Discord group that you were a part of, and I think James SC's group maybe. And there was discussion of, I think there were some lines of questioning that led down the road of you possibly being like a National Socialist or of that kind of that ilk, that thinking. I don't know, and we've just sort of been going over this with ElRondur, and he kind of sees that Germany needs some kind of a boost in some way.
He was cutting out on
the stream as well. Sorry about that. It is cutting out. I don't know why. Okay. It has just cut out.
we can hear her now.
Sorry. If you can, I just got an app. TOITN asked Witness about Rob and his Discord antics. Don't know. I'm not in that Discord. Maybe Bhadmarsh or TYO is going to jump on, I think. In the meantime, I don't know what's going on with my internet. Sorry about this, guys.
Sorry, I'm losing you a little bit here. You're a bit in and out, so I don't know if there was a question or you.
Yeah, I'm cutting out. It's I'm not sure what's going on with my signal. It should be better now. Hopefully.
Yeah, give it a go.
Yeah.
Speak a sentence or two.
Sorry, there was talk of a Discord group with James SC and people sort of asking you questions about your political positions, possibly.
James SC.
No, Dan, it's not James SC. It's not James SC. It's another James.
Okay,
It's another James. He used to come to to Speaker's Corner.
You're talking about other James, the atheist James, with
Exactly,
the Discord server.
FRD James, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got kicked out of that group. But yeah, what about it?
I don't know. Dan, what have you heard? You've heard something about Rob?
Yeah, was it something to do with you being a Nazi, or them thinking that you were a Nazi or something like that?
I don't know if that was why I got kicked out of there. Nobody ever said.
Was this to do with when Rob got pulled about being a Nazi and he was supposed to prove his innocence or something like that, and he disappeared off Discord?
Something like that. Is that you, Ghost?
Yeah, I think that's the one, isn't it? Yeah, this is Rob. This is Rob. Rob's favorite comment and Rob's favorite phrase is "play the idea, don't play the man." Play the idea, don't play the man.
I don't know where you
and you know that has been playing on my mind for a long time. And you know me now, I have actively decided to start playing the men, or should I say the avatars behind the questioning. You know, these hidden people who hide behind certain. We don't know who they are. They could be serial killers for all we care, for all we know. And we're sat here debating them. We don't know their history. So from this point, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to start playing the man, scratching the surface. Let's see what we find, who the people are that are posing all these big questions. Shall we? I think that needs to be done, because there's a lot of people playing a lot of like sideward games at Speaker's Corner. There's a lot of people playing some like weird games. So I think people do need to start opening up about who they are and what they actually stand for, other than their avatar speaks or types.
Who's that? Is that Asif?
No, it's TYO.